Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Cinema Condition with filmmaker slash creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. I hope everybody's having a wonderful time and a wonderful day today. I know that coronavirus stuff has gotten us a little bit down, but I am here to continue on our wonderful deep dive into films with my wonderful guests. And yes, last week's episode was incredible with A.K. Almumen when we talked about Sean Baker's 2015 film, Tangerine. And today we're going to continue on our our show with a new guest, and we have ourselves a film that we've actually talked about on the Nerdcore podcast. But today we're going to go ahead and introduce today's guest. Today I'm being joined by my wonderful, honestly, probably one of my best friends in this world. His name is Bradley Simmons. He is the co-creator. Well, not the co-creator. He was the stepchild. You know, he came in. The co-creator is Luis. But I still owe a lot of the reason why the Nerdcore is alive and well to Brad. Brad is my co-host for every show that I do except for the High Flyer Radio and the Impaired Files. Brad has helped me a ton, and we both manage the Patreon and do a lot of cool stuff. He is one of the three heads of the dragon of what keeps the wonderful network afloat. He is also, if you want to get into specifics, he is the head of content development over at Cyclops Films. But you know, I'm just keeping it going at this point. Welcome everybody to the Cinema Condition. Random Germ 101. Young Yoda.
Thank you, Ro. Thank you for having me. One day you'll have me on the Impaired Files, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so. That one right now is a little bit tough because everybody's like trying to get. Look, to be honest, we're trying to get everything back to normal on the feed, and that means getting everything back to normal with the Empire Files too. But
I mean, just from this week alone, what's normal?
Yeah, I mean, last week, because this comes out on Wednesday. Last week you had the live show, you had High Flyer Radio, Ladies and Nerdcore, and a regular episode of the show, I believe. So, you know, it's pretty much back to how it used to be. So, you know, and also just with everything going on in the world, it's hard to keep a normal schedule right now. But, you know, we are here to talk about Akira Kurosawa's film, Ikiru. And, Brad, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well, Ro. Doing well. Just to bring up, we've already reviewed this movie.
Yes, sir.
Probably a year or 2 years ago.
So yeah.
This might have been one of the first Kurosawa ones we reviewed because it is one that's close to my heart and probably the most beloved one I love of Kurosawa's.
I believe we did this review for Classic Film Month.
Yeah.
That was I don't think that was that our second ever theme month?
That might have been. I don't. We've done so many movies by now that I don't remember. Because
the first official month was the Star Wars Review-a-thon.
The Star Wars prequels for which I came on.
And then we did the sequels, and then we did Rogue One and Force Awakens before The Last Jedi.
Yeah, this might have been when we did was it Vertigo? We did Vertigo.
Yes, we did Vertigo, 12 Angry Men.
12 Angry Men. Yeah, that might have been our second month. So it's been a good 2, almost 3 years.
Wow, yeah. This has been a while. Yeah, this is one of our first ones. I would have thought this was for foreign film month, but no, this was one of our first months. It was our first official theme month because we had picks. The review-a-thon was really just me trying to play catch up with Star Wars films because it was like we're gonna get them done first so that we don't ever have to do them again.
And yeah, that was just me randomly just stepping in for Luis and now becoming permanent stepdad, and they've taken my name.
Brad, Luis refuses to get the co-creator title. It's like, nah, I'm not. It's all you. And I'm like,
I mean, I really believe that's up to you on titles you give, but Luis was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's usually what a creator means is you're there from the beginning. Now, you could say I've been here thereafter, but I wasn't originally a creator.
Yeah. So, but Brad's still a really big part of what we do over here. Like, Brad is also the host of Unstructured with Young Yoda. That's a wonderful little show that he does. He's also
every now and again. It's not very consistent, but I'm trying.
He's also a writer for the website. He's done a couple of articles and he's written a lot of stuff. He does that, and yeah, Brad writes for us. He just does a lot of stuff, and he's also he's also the creator and the founder of the newly relaunched This Is Local Love.
That's my so if I got to say four things I love: my wife, my dogs, the Nerd Cores, and This Is Local Love.
Yep. So Brad chose Ikiru to go ahead and do this film, and we're gonna go ahead and finally introduce you all to the filmmaker known as Akira Kurosawa. So Kurosawa would begin his career before the actual outbreak of the Second World War. He would make a lot of propaganda films for the Japanese government, but he wouldn't really begin his career, what he believes is his career, until Sanshiro Sagata in 1936. No, not 19. It's because Sanshiro Sagata was two parts, so you really.
Well, and that was I believe the martial art film that he created, kind of his original. He doesn't really in his book, his autobiography, he never really wanted to make the second part. So I don't even consider that. But that first one, he actually went to the author. So somebody had written that character, and he actually got the rights to that. He actually went to the author, and because there were multiple studios trying to get that author to give them the rights, but there was something about Kurosawa that the writer really liked. So that's the reason he gave him the rights.
So Sanshiro Sagata would be in 46. He wouldn't really rise to prominence really until the likes of his popular noir films like Drunken Angel, but he would really create his big masterpiece in 54 with Seven Samurai. That would be his big one, the one that put him on the map. And Kurosawa is known to be probably the greatest filmmaker of all time. Brad and I really do agree with that. He is the greatest filmmaker of all time. He created the epic, even though a lot of people go back in time and decide that the epic was the Ten Commandments from Cecil the Mill. But to me, I think that Kurosawa did create the epic, and he's responsible for films such as Ran, Yojimbo, Senjuro. He created the samurai film, which led to the creation of the spaghetti western and films such as Star Wars as well. And he would really create a lot of groundbreaking genre films.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head. That's one of the main reasons I got into Kurosawa was, of course, the samurai films. The first one being Hidden Fortress, which most people know who follow Kurosawa is where George Lucas got many of the ideas for Star Wars. So go nerd me. Yep. But I think in some respect, many people don't know Kurosawa just because of the years gone by, and that they don't understand that the spaghetti westerns from the old school spaghetti westerns that their dads loved and that they grew up on, a lot of that was from the samurai epics that Kurosawa did. Yep. And I like to think that we as a podcast have been trying to get that name more into homes and to tell people, look, if you really want to know where the movies you love came from, go watch some Kurosawa films. Go watch some Ingmar Bergman films. Go watch, all of these films.
Kurosawa really is the director for filmmakers to base their work ethic on, because Kurosawa started as just as an assistant director,
and really he wanted to be a painter.
Yeah,
it's really funny how he got into the job. He kind of just wandered into it, and he did well at it.
But Kurosawa made it a job to also learn every other process of the filmmaking process. He learned lighting, he learned everything, gaffing, grip, and every single thing he could learn. So that way, when he finally got to the director's chair, he really had a plethora of knowledge. to bring to his filmography.
And Kurosawa really has to thank the directors he worked under. There was specifically one, you might have his name down there. I can't remember things
I
off
can't
the top of
remember
my
his
head.
name, but you what's it called? From I'm always want to say Ozu, but it's not Ozu. It's
It's
somebody
not
else.
Ozu. It begins with a Y. I know that. But like Yashimoto or
Yes.
something
Yeah,
to that.
Yashimoto.
Yeah. So Yashimoto. So he working under him. That's where Kurosawa was made to get and learn everything, and specifically editing. And you look at any Kurosawa film, and you look like go to Wikipedia, and you'll see who the editor is. It's always Kurosawa, and that's kind
Hmm.
of unheard of to me.
Yeah. Uh, and just because I had to put this up there, Kurosawa-san was born in March 23rd, 1910 in Shinagawa, Tokyo, Japan, and he would die at the age of 88 in Setagaya, Tokyo, Japan on September 6th, 1998. A year before the death of of Kubrick, and I believe what's it called but and I can't remember when Hitchcock dies, but I know it was also in March. But yeah, it's 1998. 88 years, and I believe it was in 97 or 98 when he got that honorary Oscar, and the Lifetime Achievement Award. And he basically says that he knows nothing about cinema, and he still does not know anything about cinema, and he hopes to make better movies. You're like, holy crap! I mean, this is the man. This is the man that made so many movies, man. 30 films in his career. Not a lot of people even reach the 20s, of their filmography, man. Hitchcock made a resounding 50. Kubrick would make 13, but Kurosawa made 33. His last one being Madayo, even though he really wanted Dreams to be the last film he made, but he was able to push out two more in his career after Dreams.
Yeah, I the man was basically a workhorse in a way, and with those 33 films, although a lot of those early ones he didn't necessarily want to make or love to make, he made them because the state told him to make them.
Pretty
Which is kind of
much.
unfortunate in a way, is he was being forced to make propaganda films and something he didn't really believe in. And if you
Mm-hmm.
you go back to his autobiography, when the Americans came in, he found that he was given a lot more freedom to make what he wanted to make, and stating ideas that the emperor and the imperial Japanese from before wouldn't have agreed with him with.
For sure. For sure. Um, he would he'd get an he won a lot of he won some international, well, not international, because back then it was called a foreign language film. That was the name of the the of the award back then for the foreign language films. He would win it for Derzu Urzula, and if I remember correctly, he won it for Seven Samurai, but I can't. I have a really big complaint about the way that Wikipedia puts whoever's in charge of the Wikipedia page for Kurosawa. Y'all are terrible. But he wins it in '76 for Dersu Urzula, and he looks like that's it. That's his only one. He never wins the Best Director award, by the way, and it's a damn shame. He joins the groups such as Kubrick and Hitchcock to never win the Best Director award. And in '99, he was honored he was honored an award for the Japanese Academy, a Lifetime Achievement Award as well. But yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. This man is responsible for a lot of what we see nowadays. And Brad, I want to ask, why'd you pick Ikiru? Even though I know that
Ikiru
answer.
Ikiru is one of those special ones that I just love from Kurosawa. It hits close to home for me, as if people don't know, I'm also an engineer and I work for the government. So this film is based around a government employee who basically has lost love for his work and is just literally stamping papers, and has been stamping papers for 20 to 30 years. That's all he's been doing. And this film really dives deep into even towards the end of one's life with mortality facing you down, you can still accomplish something and help others.
Hmm. Yeah. This film, when I first watched it, it really it really, what's it called, left a mark on me, man. This was an incredible film. This was my I think this was one of my first introduction to him. I think I'd watched Seven Samurai before, because after this we would actually do our first month of Kurosawa, and we did a lot of really good films, and we already had our second month for Kurosawa. But
Well,
this film
eh,
is very different from
eh,
the rest of his career.
well, and when people think of Kurosawa, it's no question they think of his samurai films. You think of Yojimbo, you think of Ron, you think of Seven Samurai, Hidden Fortress, because he was very good at making samurai style films. There's no question of that. The man was a master maker of that. And then I think he's known after that for his noir films, which me and you both love. But
Hmm.
this is one of the weird ones. This is kind of like One Wonderful Sunday. It's one of those outliers in there of where the story is not a noir, it's not a samurai film, but it's one that shows basically just life in general. And I think sometimes Kurosawa hits it his best when he doesn't necessarily have to keep with a samurai epic or a dark noir, but tells just a story of what could be someone's life and any timeline.
Hmm. Yeah. So here I finally have it, Brad. He won the best foreign language film for Darsul Razula in '76, correct? But he was nominated for best director in '86 for Ran, and then in '81 he was also nominated for best foreign language film for Kagemusha, and then in '72 he was also nominated for best foreign language film for Dodetsukaden.
I don't see how he doesn't win for Ron,
Oh,
unless
I don't
some
know. I don't know.
unless the other film up there was just completely marvelous. Although if we go back, we see United States definitely had an issue with foreign countries who are our enemies back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them the credit that they probably deserved. Like you look at Tarkovsky, like it's bad when neither me, you, nor Aiden had watched any of his films,
Oh yeah.
because you would think one of us would have taken the time to be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, this is a name that gets thrown around a lot. Maybe we should watch it," and it
Mm-hmm.
just never happened. So
Yeah.
that could be an issue where Japan now, well, Japan back in the day was an enemy. Now they're an ally, but at the same time, Kurosawa made a lot of those films, where you're kind of in between, like you're getting used to them being an ally,
Yup.
and that might have
Mhm.
been why he didn't win.
And it's only taken until now for us to recognize Tarkovsky too. Like I think as of late, we finally started to see a resurgence of the appreciation of Tarkovsky. He would go on to win the Palme d'Or though in 1980. He won it for Kagemusha. So at least France, what's it called, was able to what's it called, give him an award for that one. He's won a lot of awards. He's won Venice Film Festival awards. He's won the Caesar Awards. He's won the BAFTAs and he's won the Palme d'Or. But he never won the Best Director award for the Academy. And we finally saw it last year for Parasite, that Bong Joon Ho took that award in the Best Picture. But it's crazy, man. You look at all the filmography and you're like, how are these not winners for those years? Especially Ron. I mean, you look at Ron. There's nobody else in 1986 who I believe directed a better movie than uh,
N-
than Kurosawa.
Yeah, I don't see how any film really compares in that same time frame to Ron. That's an amazing work of art. But again, looking past the awards, because the awards are subjective,
Mm-hmm.
and just like as I say, the Oscars are, to me, they couldn't decide on anything if you put it
Mm-hmm.
in front of them correctly. Like they didn't have any women film directors, and some
Mm-hmm.
women made the best films of last year. So I
Yeah.
don't get that. But I will say Kurosawa kept really good company in Spielberg, Lucas,
Hmm.
all these directors who we know now and who are some of the biggest directors ever.
Yep.
They learned from Kurosawa.
Yep. The likes of Fincher, Scorsese, Spielberg, Lucas all have credited
Francis Ford Coppola.
Coppola, yeah, all have credited what's it called? All have credited Kurosawa as probably the master. I mean, in 1998 when they gave the award, that career award to him, it was Coppola, Spielberg, and Lucas there to hand the award to Kurosawa-san.
Yeah,
So, mhm,
as it should be. I mean, because I mean, I don't know if George Lucas would kind of have the career he has now
mm-mm.
if he hadn't learned all they could from Kurosawa films.
Yep. I mean, they would even go as far to finance Dreams. When Kurosawa still didn't have enough money to finance Dreams and to get it to distribution.
Dreams and Kagemusha.
Mm-hmm.
That was another one.
Yep. When there was no money to get that distribution for the United States, those three came in to help and save the day.
Which is amazing to me is you have the greatest filmmaker and he couldn't even get one of his films funded for some reason. And this was actually those movies, Ron and Kagemusha and Dreams, were during his low point in his life.
Yeah. And you've never seen Dreams, but I have, and I'll tell you this, that's probably one of the most introspective films he's ever made. I think Dreams is very multi-layered. It's very it deals a lot with the sins of the past, and because a lot of those dreams that he has have to do with the military. So it's him really trying to going back into his his earlier years and really kind of reflecting on what the military was doing at the time and really what it felt to be in the Japanese army.
Well, and if you read it, again, I go back to his autobiography,
Mm-hmm.
but he never really served in the military. Like he was being taught by the military, like the
Mm-hmm.
schools were, but he was a horrible student in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
Like he almost got into like a fist fight with, I guess, one of the military instructors. So, I mean, I would say if you haven't read it, go read his autobiography. It has some really good
Yep.
good items in it.
Yep. So with that being, that is the incredible career of Akira Kurosawa. We could sit here for hours talking about the career of this man because this man's career is large. He is responsible for where we are at the moment. He would go on. His films really dealing with the war really influenced the likes of Hayao Miyazaki, Takashi Takahata. And, even though he really butt heads with a lot of directors in Japan, especially Ozu, he's still a very, very important filmmaker in the world.
Mm-hmm. Very influential. He's a foundational director. We've said it before on this podcast on the Nerd Cores. And one thing that I have to say that I didn't realize, because I had an appreciation for his black and white movies.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I watched Ron where I had an appreciation for what he could do with colored movies.
Just wait until you watch Dreams, bro. Wait until you watch Dreams. Those colors he's using in Dreams are incredible. But I
still say Tarkovsky is still the best I've ever seen when it comes to movies in color.
100%. And we'll see who takes Tarkovsky on this one. But yeah. Let's go ahead and finally get into our conversation here. As always, guys, there will be a commercial break later on, but for now, we're still on good time. We're gonna go ahead and open up our discussion about Akira Kurosawa's Ikiru. So, Akira Kurosawa's Ikiru is really based on what's it called, on our protagonist, Mr. Watanabe, who works at the government, and he's dying. He has stomach cancer, and he really is trying to complete just one last thing in government before he's able before he passes. His family, he really doesn't have a family, really. His son is he's really passive aggressive with him. He only sees him as, a bother and really only wanting to get his will. And, he doesn't have a wife anymore. And he's really just, he clings on to this woman who's trying to get one thing done, so that way he's able to, leave this earth with something being completed and accomplished.
This is definitely a story of loss,
Yep.
um, and being lost.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the ultimate movie, I think, where a man is facing mortality and then facing his regrets
Mm-hmm.
head on. I mean, I just gotta throw this out here because we haven't mentioned the actor yet, who
Yeah.
Takashi Shimura.
Yeah. One of his big what's it called, actors that he worked with.
Just amazing, amazing
Mm-hmm.
because there's not a whole ton of speaking from Shimura in this movie. There's not. There's a few lines here and there, but mostly it's just the facial gestures he does and the little sounds he makes, the little movements, and he actually won a BAFTA award for Best
Mm-hmm.
Actor in this,
Yep.
and it's barely a speaking part.
Mm-hmm. And once again, we see in because Kurosawa was a big Shakespeare fan, but he was also a really big what's it called, fan of literature, Russian literature. You know, a lot of his noirs are really based on the Dorvetsky film novels. This film is actually, the screenplay is inspired by Leo Tolstoy's 1986 novel. Um, it's being covered right now because this Wikipedia, the death of Ivan Ilyich. So, yeah, you know, this is another one of his examples of being really, what's it called? 1886. I'm sorry, not 1986. 1886 novella, The Death of Ivan Ilyich. Once again, this is another example of Kurosawa being influenced by Russian literature.
I mean, this isn't surprising because a lot of the films we love from Kurosawa, they are based on some other's writing,
Yeah.
and it's just he's kind of made it into a Japanese model based on those writings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, the direct translation from Japanese of this film is "To Live," and that's an interesting title away from Ikiru. But yeah, this film, I when I first watched this film, this is one of my favorite Kurosawa films. It still holds up even to this day. It's been 2 years since I first watched it. Second time rewatching it, and this one still holds up. This one's, I think, because there's something really interesting happening at the core of this film. I think it's Kurosawa mixing a lot of what he knows, but this was also a very it is not incredibly experienced Kurosawa, but this is, I feel like this is also Kurosawa finally like, okay, cool, I can breathe, I can make films that I really, really want to make now. Even though back then it was like, I know there was some films that he created after the propaganda films that he still didn't want to make. You know, he was
Hmm.
like, I didn't really like this one, and I didn't really like the way I made this one. This one really feels like this is authentically Kurosawa, and you can tell because it's a longer film than usual. You know, I believe it is 143 minutes. It's 2 hours and 23 minutes. You know, most of the big Kurosawa films that you watch and the amazing ones are really more than 2 hours. I mean, what's it called? The Seven Samurai is notoriously 3 hours.
3 hours and 30 minutes or something to that.
Yep. This is also one of the many that he started working with Toho. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he started out with Toho,
Mm-hmm.
so that was his original studio was with. But I mean, again, he goes off and they have a union issue with Toho, and he goes to a
Mm-hmm.
different studio. I mean, it's crazy where Kurosawa went through in his career.
Yeah. Yeah, this film does really present a lot of interesting themes, and I think that one of the first ones that you really do, the one that's the most noticeable, is the one about death. Really, the confrontation of mortality. I think that's something that, especially when you look at the autobiography of Kurosawa, when his brother takes him after that earthquake, and he shows him all the destruction, he's like, "Look at this is the world." It always takes me back to Ikiru, and it's like this is the situation at hand. He's going to die, and you're really there starting to examine the idea of mortality.
Yeah, I mean, this is what this whole film is based on: is a man being diagnosed with cancer and how he deals with it.
Hmm.
It's really kind of a simple premise in a way, but it really goes into deep when you see what he has to go through and the regrets he has, and then the decision he makes at the end, even though he knows that he doesn't have very long to live.
Hmm. Yeah, it's there's this clinging with Watanabe, this just to get something. What's it called? Something to be done. Something needs to be accomplished before I leave this earth. I think it's the one of the biggest anxieties us as humans have with death. I don't think we fear death. I think we fear the idea of not doing something before that time comes. That feeling that we don't leave a legacy behind. I think that really reflects off the man that Kurosawa was too, because there comes a point where Kurosawa attempts to kill himself, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of that was the pressure of being like, "Okay, I really made everything I could make, all the great films I could." And I mean, where I made Rashomon, which everybody in that year was talking about Rashomon, and what everything that comes after before he tries to kill himself, he's like, I really made everything I could. What else is going to come? If this is the best I've done, this is the best I've done.
Yeah, and this is this kind of reflects in that, but in kind of the opposite manner. And you have a character who hasn't done anything
Yeah.
and looks back at his life and is just filled with remorse and regret,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads him to try and fix it. He goes to bars, he tries to drink his problems away, and then when that doesn't work, he goes to the dance halls, tries to pick up on women, and realizes that's not the way either. And you kind
Mm-hmm.
of follow him in this journey until he meets up with this old employee of his who quit working for
Mm-hmm.
the government because she wasn't feeling fulfilled. And then she went and makes toy rabbits. And she just is filled with so much joy and happiness that, all these children are going to get to play with something that she made and that's going to bring them joy. And he looks at this rabbit, he looks at her, and it finally clicks on what he can do,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes back to his job and he basically pushes through all the bureaucratic red tape in
Mm-hmm.
order to get this park and playground built that these women, I would say there's probably 6 or 7 women who've been trying to get this. It's basically like a mud hole, a sewage like issue kind of going on there. It's not a good look, but they've been directed, I think, to every department in the government to
Mm-hmm.
try and fix this issue, and they basically were at the point of giving up until Watanabe steps in and goes, "You know what? I'm going to help. I
Mm-hmm.
will go and I will sit there half dying in this director's office until he gives me the answer I want."
Mm-hmm.
And it is just so terrific to see. And I think anyone who's ever had a job they didn't love or have questioned before, if you watch this movie, you kind of get redirected in why you should be doing that job or what you should be doing in that job if you're not feeling fulfilled, or even if you should leave that job and find something else that you love. And this is a film that I've probably watched 5 or 6 times for that very reason, because sometimes, jobs can get difficult. Jobs can feel like you're not making any headway, that it's not worth it going in
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And you watch this and you go, okay, you kind of get a little more momentum after watching this to go in and try to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the I what's it called? The Japanese culture is very work centric. I mean, it's the reason why, um, what's it called? The suicide rates are so high in Japan, and it's also just the way that they're told to keep everything bottled up and not speak about it. But here in the United States, it's also the way that we're worked to death here. You know, we are looked upon whenever we want to take a break. Like they make you not want to take a break. They're like, okay, yeah, your legs broken, but can you find a way to still come into work? Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like especially now, especially when we're recording right now in times of a fucking virus. You think like what's it
Well,
called?
yeah, and now that brings the question up of what can we do now when they can't work or we don't want them to come into work, but they have to come into work because the pay structure and the system is so unstable that if you lose your workforce, you lose all that.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of this film is about the bureaucracy and also just it's also kind of, I want to say, it's also a commentary on how the bureaucracy in Japan works, and it's also, I think it's him criticizing that, and it's like, it's a simple thing. They want a playground, and they
Hmm.
can't get it. Something as simple as a playground, you would think would be easy to get. It's not like you're
Oh,
trying to pass a new bill.
yeah. Well, and being one who works in government, I can tell you that there are certain things that make sense in why they do it, but there are also certain rules and policies that don't make any sense at all, but you still have to follow them because they're rules and policies. And unfortunately, this does happen is, people get passed from department to department because either the department doesn't want to deal with them or they don't know. So they pass it to some other department that might know. And the issue being is you have people who work in government who are kind of just there to pick up a paycheck. They don't love what they do and they don't want to help.
Hmm. And one of the most interesting parts when you talk about the theme of death in this film, it's, the lady that's there with him, the lady gets really tired of his expressions. She gets like kind of frustrated, and I think it also has to say the way that because one of the best parts of this movie, I think, is the funeral scene when everybody's gathered and
Hmm.
everybody's starting to reflect on the way they even treated Mr. Watanabe and the way that he was viewed, and you realize that Mr. Watanabe died alone in that playground with the sun in a beautiful shot, beautifully filmed of the snow coming down, and he's right there just swinging, and he's just dying, and everybody in that room during the funeral scene is just absolutely filled with regret with the way that they treated him, and also the way that they were with him. And a lot of that is just Kurosawa showing like just how us as humans treat each other and the way that we should be better because we don't know when that day comes. We don't know when that day comes when we're dead, when we're dying. Even the ladies, like, do you guys feel good that he died all alone in that park?
Well, and I just got to bring this up. So you had that police officer come in and tell his story of what he was witnessed with Watanabe, and he basically said Watanabe was singing, he was humming. He almost sounded happy.
Hmm.
It's because Watanabe died fulfilled. He died alone,
Yeah,
no joke, but he died fulfilled.
yeah.
And they bring it back to this funeral, and you see all these bureaucrats, all these suit and tie types just getting drunk and wailing away on their regrets of how they treated Watanabe. But at the end of the day, most of them didn't change their ways. They said they were. They were making a big show of like, Mr. Mayor, I'm totally going to do this and this and this. And no, and it was really only one character in that whole scene who really got what Watanabe did. And he could see the others were just lying and making a big show.
Yup, yup. And what's it called? It's that the whole concept of the forced isolation, really. Him going there, but he's fulfilled. He's happy, but
Swinging away.
he's swinging away, and he's just he's done what he wanted to do. He's finally happy. He's fulfilled. He understands now what it means to live a full, fulfilled life, even though his life at home with his son may not be the best. He was finally able to complete that one thing he wanted, and he gets to swing away, and he dies alone. While some people feel really terrible of it, and some people are just fake talking about things that they didn't even know because they can't really admit to themselves that they treated Mr. Watanabe really bad.
Or the way they go about their job is the
Mm-hmm.
same way Watanabe did before he got his cancer diagnosis. Like they don't want to admit that they're also just
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing anything. They're just going through the motions.
Yep. Yep, and I'm telling you, man, this film has some really really interesting layers. Like I said, this is really one of Kurosawa's most intimate works to me. I think that he really does kind of talk a lot about, especially like one of the most interesting aspects that he talks about in this film is like the family, because the way how did what is family once your son starts to treat you like you're just you're a bother around, especially because you've seen so many films from Kurosawa where family is a really key aspect, but this one it's like, wow, like, the son just does not want him around. He just wants to get the money and go.
Yeah, well, the son treats him as a bother, but you got to think that this might have been Watanabe's own doing if all he did was work and work and
Mm-hmm.
work and never, did anything with his child, which is what I get from this is, Watanabe didn't like do anything at work, but he was always at work.
Yup. Yup.
And so I don't doubt that the son had issues with that and never forgave his father for that, and that's why he treated him so.
Yep. Well, when we come back from the commercial break, we're going to continue our conversation on Akira Kurosawa's Ikiru. But for right now, go ahead and listen to this commercial break and check out all the other shows on the Nerdcore Podcast Network. We'll be back in a little bit, guys. Hey, I'm Raul Ayden Byrnes, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore Podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, if it's from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT, nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Core. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Core podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano show every Sunday at 8 a.m., all you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right? And we come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show of the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that commercial break, and we're back and continuing our conversation of Akira Kurosawa's Ikiru with Brad, aka Young Yoda. Last we were on before we went on to commercial break, we were talking about the relationship between the father and the son. It's interesting. This is really, I never treated my father like a bother. He's not. My father worked out of town for many, many years of my life. He still does. He pretty much, sometimes he worked in my state. Sometimes he worked 12 states away from me. Sometimes he worked out of the country. So, there was a lot of times where it was just me and my mom and my brothers. My dad wasn't really around until he would come back for when he had time off or when he had the vacations. And you understand, especially as a Latino, you really understand that's how it is. Your father is able to sacrifice a lot, so your parents in general are sacrificing a lot so that way they can make money, so that way you're able to eat. And that's why there's always an ongoing joke, like your mom knows all the names of your friends, but as a Latino, you're pretty certain that your dad doesn't even know the name of your friends, because he's too busy working to know your friends names. And that's something that I really relate to in this film. The father is constantly working, and it's not like fathers like in other films like Francois Truffaut's 400 Blows, right? Where the dad thinks that, just working and bringing the money is enough to get the son to love him. Like, no,
that's not parenting.
That's not parenting.
That's not being a father.
But in this one, it's like, it's also Watanabe just really feeling like, I spent so much time working, I should have used a lot of that time to spend with my kid, because now my kid doesn't even want me around, sees me as a bother. And part of me thinks that maybe it was my wrongdoings. Maybe it was, or maybe I just wasn't there enough for him.
Yeah. Just to bring up my parental situation. I never treated my dad like a bother. But me and him are so similar that we butt heads. I think that's with most any son and their dad, I would think. But he was military, so he was gone a long time too. Both Desert Storms. So it was mostly just me and my mom. So I understand the situation you bring up, Raul.
Oh yeah,
perfectly. But yeah, this is another one of those, and I think those situations are different, because I think as a kid, either you don't notice or you grow an awareness of, my dad still loves me, but he's working and he's going in, doing this stuff to provide for me and mom. That's kind of the idea you get with this in that situation. In this situation, dad's pretty close to home. He's coming home for dinners. He's doing that. He just ain't spending time with his son. He chose work over his son, and I think that's where the difference lies in between what we experienced and then what Watanabe did.
Well, you really, because there's one thing I always bring up, and it's something when you really do analyze a lot of these situations. There's the absent father, which really sucks for your father just to run out and he's not there anymore for you. But there's got to be a special kind of hurt for the father that is there at the house every single day, but but is absent in his own. Like, he doesn't communicate, he doesn't talk, like he's just there to provide the money and go. Like, that's gotta hurt more. Like, you see this guy every day, he's there for dinners, but he's just not communicating.
Well, and on top of that, he's a widower.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it sounds like he's been a widower for a long time. It sounds like his wife died quite a while ago, and it sounds like his son still kind of holds a grudge in that, his mom was taken away so early, and that his dad was never there, and now he just sees his dad as a bother and just wants to make sure the money is still safe when he goes.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really hard thing to swallow in here, because the son really does treat his dad terribly, but like
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's to the point where he basically just kicking him out of the house,
pretty
and
much.
just shutting the door on him.
But the dad is so depressed, and he's like, maybe I do deserve the treatment that he's giving me. And he really doesn't ever, retaliate.
No,
Excuse me.
I think the way he goes about trying to retaliate is basically just spending the money on booze and women.
Pretty much,
through,
yeah.
Through 1/3 of this film.
Yeah.
It's kind of like whenever I go to a casino and you only see the old retirees there. Yeah, and the joke is they're spending their kids' inheritance. That's how I kind of see it.
College fun? No, honey, I spent that yesterday in Vegas.
Yeah, but I'm just pulling the slot machine. Yep.
Yeah, but call your mom a bitch again. That's $25 spent at the casino, baby. Yep. And it's also interesting because you talk about the booze, and he says, I believe he says in the film, is it suicide if you drink alcohol when you have stomach cancer? Because he refuses to kill himself. Yeah, he refuses to kill himself.
He did think about it for a moment. Like, momentarily, he did think about it after getting the diagnosis, but he goes on not to do it.
Yeah.
But I never thought of that line. That is a very good line by Kurosawa.
Yeah. It's also just the way that Japan treats mental health, in a way. It's all just like, bottle it up. You don't speak about it. Very similar to the way the U.S., just as of late, we've gotten better with the newer generations of actually being more vocal about our mental health. But, he refuses to kill himself, and he just keeps going. But, he slowly is killing himself by just drinking himself to death.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and he makes a friend, and that brings him around because the dude feels for the guy, and he wants to make sure like the last few days of his are going to be one spent, at least trying to live in some manner, because I guess the dude he meets at the bar thinks, this guy is really depressed, one, and two, he hasn't gone out in a long time. Like he didn't really know how to act at bars and stuff. You can tell Watanabe was not the most social creature ever. And like he gets his hat stolen, and it's funny because he like stays pissed about that hat for so long.
He loves his hat. He loves his hat, man.
To the point where he grabs his new hat from the waitress or the bartender who tries to put it up for him.
Yeah. Damn, yeah. He really does stay pressed about the hat. Yeah, it's something he really just, like, give me my hat back. What's it called? And I think that you talk about the moments where he really starts to feel that happiness. I think one of those first ones is that happy birthday scene. Where
with the kids. The kids are celebrating her birthday.
Yep. And I think that's one of the moments where he finally is like, you know what? Maybe things are okay. Maybe things are starting. Maybe there is something good about this, and I'm going to die, but at least at this moment right now, I'm really happy. Well,
and I think the timeline on this movie is great because you get his cancer diagnosis, where basically then he's just in a cloud of confusion until the bar scene where he sings probably the saddest song I think I've ever heard in a movie.
Yeah.
That's the low point right there. That to me is the low point in this movie. It just, wow, our character is really depressed here.
Yeah.
And then it starts to build up till that birthday scene. And then it goes up to the scene where he's talking with his ex-employee and how she's so happy she's just found a job she loves and is helping people, even if it's just, making toys. And then from that, then it just goes into him finally finding fulfillment and working to create something finally in his life.
Yeah, Kurosawa does that a lot in his films. He like gives you a really, really happy moment, and then he gives you a really sad one. In Dreams, there's a really happy one, a happy dream, and then it's just followed by a really depressing one that comes in next. And he does that a lot in this movie too, where he'll have like moments where Watanabe is like really found some really nice happiness, and then he follows it by like that scene where he's singing that song. And I'm glad that his life really ends with a happy one where he's in the swing. But like, damn, like he really does know when to put those moments where things are really good, and then he has those ones where things are really bad.
And and I like that about Kurosawa is you get, no pun intended, the highs and lows.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Of what he's trying. Kurosawa makes films that basically, especially in these films, like One Wonderful Sunday, Ikiru, and these same kind of things. He makes a film that's basically, if you're just watching someone's day, like an actual day in their life.
Yep.
That's really what you're getting.
You don't really get a lot of those these days. You don't really get to just follow one character throughout one day as they're trying to get through something in their life, and you don't get a lot of them these days.
And you see every aspect of it. You don't get like the Facebook, hey, everything's good, I'm on a beach every day.
Nah, you see the moments are sad.
Post. You get the low points. You get those anxiety-ridden parts of these characters, and I think Kurosawa really does some of his best work when he's just showing what life actually looks like.
For sure. And that's a lot of what is being done in this one, man. I gotta say, this is one of my favorite films in Kurosawa, and it's also just one of his best. Kurosawa is an incredible filmmaker, one that I really say, I think that this movie's not that hard to follow. I don't think so at all. I think a lot of Kurosawa, there's some like, Seven Samurai is really tough to follow that film after a while.
That film, Seven Samurai, is just hard to follow because it's 3 hours and 30 minutes because Kurosawa was the editor.
Yeah. But this one is like not tough to, it's really tough to dissect because it's really depressing, man. And it's no surprise that it is influenced by a Russian novel because a lot of Russian literature was really depressing. And
yeah, I mean, if you've ever watched Tarkovsky film, I mean, you can see kind of what Russia looked like.
Yep.
But I'll say, like I've said before, if you're getting into Kurosawa films, the movies I suggest you watching are this one. This is a good one to get into kind of Kurosawa when he's not doing his samurai thing.
Well, Brad, what's it called? We have to get it done with another segment, but yeah, I'm gonna interrupt you there because now we get into the hot seat, man. What film would you recommend people to go watch? And also, what film do you want to call dibs on for season 2?
Would I recommend people to go watch? I'll just say 2.
Sure.
This one being one, and then Hidden Fortress if they're wanting to get into kind of that. I think that's an easy, digestible film, especially from the samurai genre of Kurosawa, and plus, if you're a nerd, and I would think it's called the Nerd Cores, most people are listening to this channel are nerds.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of where Star Wars is based out of. So there's a history lesson for you there. So I suggest those. And to call for my next film,
because remember, we have some other ones that we're gonna do in the rest of this season. Like, this isn't the last time you're on this season, so you can't choose any of those.
I'm trying to think of what films I want to call. I'll call Stalker for Tarkovsky.
Oh, yes. Wow, God, man. So Criterion has been doing so Criterion has all of the films already up on the channel. They have his first one, Ivan's childhood, and they have his last one, The Sacrifice. So, this is gonna be interesting. Somebody finally called for Stalker. God, I love it.
I mean, out of all those movies we watched of his, Stalker was my favorite. I also think Stalker was the easiest to digest and watch because some of the themes and the others were just out there. Like the mirror was hard for me to like figure out what was kind of going on just because the time jumps.
Yeah.
Sacrifice, that was different. That one wasn't hard to digest. It wasn't my favorite compared to Stalker. And then Solaris was just weird in some portions.
There's a channel I've been watching on YouTube, and I guess everybody can watch this too. A Renegade Cut. I've seen a lot of the films, a lot of their videos on the Tarkovsky films digesting. I've been watching. I watched one of the Stalker ones, and then I ended up watching a lot more videos on Stalker. It's made me appreciate that movie even more. So if you guys are having trouble understanding Tarkovsky, I really do recommend you watch the Renegade Cut channel on YouTube and watch those videos on Tarkovsky because it really dives deeply into what the films are about. And honestly, it's making me a lot more appreciate Mirror a lot more now because I actually kind of have an idea what I was watching. But
do they do Ingmar Bergman by chance?
Fuck yeah, they do. So that's it, man. We've got the first Tarkovsky being called for next season, and now we've got ourselves a what's it called? We reached another episode, and I hope you all have a wonderful time listening to this, watching this too. Excuse me, because it's on YouTube. I want to say thank you so much for our guest for coming on. Thanks, Brad. Usually you're not used to being the guest. There's been times where I've been the guest and you've been the the host, but that was when I had to to promote my short film. But
I mean that went all right though. That went better than you thought it was.
Oh yeah, you had some really good questions, and
I actually took it serious.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue people get with us is they know you can be serious. They don't know that I also can. Like when it comes to something like I really enjoy like a Kurosawa film, just talking about it. Like I can get serious in those matters, but for the most part, with the Nerdcore, I'm there to have fun.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be stupid. It's just gonna happen that way.
Could you ever picture yourself doing this show?
Not full time, no. I think I'd go stir crazy a little bit. I mean, I could probably get through like the Kurosawa films, like I really love, like Ikiru, Ron, Stray Dog. I could probably be serious and kind of go through with guests on that or even talk to you on that. But doing it full time for every film, I think I'd get into a rut and I'd go stir crazy for it.
I think
for you, I mean, considering your major and all that, I think this is this is one of my favorite shows to listen to actually, just because I like hearing you and not hearing me talk to other people.
Yep.
But I think I might be able to do this show if it's like once a month and I'm doing mostly the Nerdcores where I don't have to be serious, where I'm just there to talk with my friend.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, this isn't a show that's supposed to be two people drinking wine and talking about a movie. This is supposed to mimic really the conversations you have after you walk out of the theater. When you just watch this movie and you're like, dude, what the hell was that? Like just what he was doing there with that and how it made you feel and stuff. And that's why this isn't really much of a review show because I do enough of those. But this is more of a hey, my friends and I just got out of the theater and we really want to talk about the themes and just the way that it's created in this film. So I thank you so much for coming on, bro. You know I love you so much, man. And we still have another show to record after this. But
yeah, I mean, thank you for having me, Raul. I was wondering, because you said you were gonna get me on here. I'm gonna be like, is this like the other one he says he's gonna get me on? But he's always like, nah, that'd be like in season 30, you dumbass.
Nah, I'm waiting to get Brad on the Nerdcore for like episode 49, because then number 50 would be his chance to interview me. So I would have to turn the tables. But yeah, what's it called? What's it called? You gotta wait, man. We got a lot of other films coming down the pipeline. I want to say the next film that we're doing for Cinema Condition is Tigers Are Not Afraid with our guest, Mariana Rivera. So I can't wait to talk to them. And for today, I'm going to say goodbye. And I'm going to go ahead and give a special thanks to our producers of the show, our Cassie and Sarah, our associate producers, and our executive producers, Grayson Barker, Shane, Tony, Bryce. Thank you all to them. They make the show happen. TheNerdcore.com is where you can read a lot of the stuff I make and I write. Brad's also on there. The YouTube channel is up there. We're the channel with more than one video. I do some reviews on there. And you guys can go watch the video versions of that, which really are just a thumbnail with audio in the back. But if that's where you like to listen, that's where you like to listen. I know a lot of people who like to follow on YouTube more than the podcast. That's where they like it. So with that being said, it's been a wonderful time here with you all, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I will see you guys next week for our discussion about Tigers Are Not Afraid with our guest, Mariana Rivera. In the meantime, it has been a wonderful time, and I'm signing off. I still don't have an outro, so go watch a movie, guys. Stay safe, and peace out.